How to look, okay?
I'm good. My pleasure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. What's that hit time? Okay.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. I hear you. They're not hearing me. All right, you hear me? You have a shot too? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Thank you. Kelsey, if this is this, I'm removing this. Is this too?
Sinclair Broadcast Group, connecting people with content everywhere.
Ahead on America This Week.
Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy.
I wish the new administration great luck and great success.
A presidential inauguration that will go down in history.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
Instead of crowds welcoming the 46th president, armed soldiers and fences surround the Capitol, where just 2 weeks ago, mobs laid violence, destruction,
This is about to get dirty, man.
and death. How will history remember President Trump's legacy? And what will the next 4 years under President Biden look like? That's right now on America This Week. Welcome to America This Week. As you can see, we are live taping just steps from the U.S. Capitol where Joe Biden was sworn in as the 46th President of the United States. Taping here was my call. I asked our producers to tape from our D.C. Bureau rooftop overlooking the Capitol. They were gracious and accommodated that request. Believe me, they had to do some serious negotiating getting access to this venue. Some of my friends, however, have been asking me, why aren't you doing the show from Andrews Air Force Base, where President Trump and Melania said farewell and departed for Mar-a-Lago? Others are doing send-off shows. Why aren't you, Eric? My answer is, why would I tape a show from there? The swearing in of a president is historic. It doesn't matter which party he or she comes from. It's a moment in American history, and it deserves coverage. And I want to cover it for you, my audience. Let me explain. Sure, I'm friends with former President Donald Trump, and yes, he was very good to me, granting me, us, you, my loyal audience, 8 interviews over the last 4 years, 7 here at Sinclair on this very show. And yes, he called me from time to time to chat. And yes, he was there for me on a very, very personal day when I lost my son. President Trump even offered me his airplane to go pick up Eric Chase's remains in Colorado. I will always be indebted to him for that caring offer. That said, I had to do an inauguration show rather than a goodbye tribute. I had to do this show from here because I always want to bring you fair, honest, and unbiased coverage of politics in D.C. All politics, left, right, center, libertarian. And so that means we're here to bring the sights and sounds of this historic day to you. I trust Donald Trump and I will remain friends. More assuredly, Donald Trump will be okay. He'll find his next chapter in media, politics, real estate, golf, who knows. He will, however, be fine. I have no doubt. But I have a job to do, and that focus of that new job starts tonight. I will, as I always have, bring truth to power, hold the powerful accountable for what they do. So, President Biden, we wish you well. America wants to see you succeed. We all want to see you succeed. After all, we're all in this together. However, rest assured, I will watch you and report on your politics and policies with the same ferocity that the left-wing media reported on Donald Trump over the last 4 years. Again, we wish you well. Now I'd like to bring in Austan Goolsbee. He was a senior economic advisor to President Obama. Austin's a great friend of the show. Welcome back, Austin. Here we are, day one, swearing in a few hours ago, right over my shoulder. By the way, it's about 34 degrees right now. It's cold here. Will the Biden economy stay as hot as the Trump economy was for the last 4 years?
Well, first of all, 34 degrees, we call that May here in Chicago. But I think the Trump economy was hot for 2.5 to 3 years, and then the coronavirus landed. First we had the trade wars, then you got the coronavirus, and what I would call the mismanagement of the virus put us in a hole. I think we could get hot again if we could get control of the spread of the virus. If we can't get control of the spread of the virus, I don't see how the economy would get hot.
Okay, so But also, and here's the reason why I ask, because we've been doing this a long time, and for the better part of the Obama years, I said, look how much debt he's adding on to the economy, at the national debt. That was going to sink us. It didn't sink us. Went to Trump. Trump put on $7 trillion of debt onto the economy. Didn't sink us. Looks like we're going to go forward. If Biden has to raise taxes, all the things he wants to do, he has to raise taxes. He's talked about raising taxes. Is there ever a day of reckoning for the economy or the country with all this additional debt, and then add on to that raising taxes to the people who are the engine of the economy, the consumers? How does it hold up? How is the stock market rallying into this whole new Biden administration?
Well, you got two different topics in there. One is, why has the market embraced the Biden presidency as enthusiastically as they have since the election day, and even today, inauguration? Stock market's up the most of 36 years of inaugurations. I don't 100% know. I do know that the immediate relief package that we need to help people get through this while the virus is raging, that shouldn't be paid for in the year it's happening. That is like fighting a war. That is like disaster relief. You don't want to pull back half the boats on D-Day because we don't have a pay for in 1944. Now, over the longer term, what you said is right. Joe Biden campaigned on, I'm going to get rid of the tax cuts for high-income people and big corporations that Donald Trump passed, and we're going to use that money to pay for infrastructure and to pay for relief for the middle class. So I think that's where the money is going to come from. That's why I don't think that there is a day of reckoning. I think they've outlined exactly what the strategy was, and they got 81 million votes for that strategy. So he's going to do what he said he was going to do.
How are you going to do this, though, Austin? How are you going to raise the minimum wage to $15? That's a big burden on small businesses. Half of them aren't able to reopen because of COVID. I remember a day not so long ago, maybe about a year ago, where any little blip in consumer spending or demand would trash the stock market. We have decimated both of those, and somehow everything, and I'm not just talking about the stock market. Real estate prices are going up. Car prices are going up. Across the board, people are spending. But you know what they're spending, Austin? They're spending the government's money. They're spending our money. They're not spending money they've earned. You're an economist. Let's put politics aside. A country, a government, an economy can't sustain itself by constantly borrowing from China or borrowing from another country and hoping something works out in the end.
Yes. Now, Eric, I'm just confused here. Where were you when we were having this discussion about Donald Trump's $2 trillion tax cut?
Listen to me. I agree with you, Austin. Let me clarify. I agree with you. I was wrong. I pointed the finger at Obama, and Trump did the same thing. He added trillions of dollars onto our debt. He gave money away left and right. Bush did it as well. My point is, I pulled all my money out of the stock market leading into the election because I do believe, and then not because it's Biden, that there's going to be a day of reckoning for this country.
Look, there may be. Stock markets go up, stock markets go down. On average, they tend to grow because we have improvements in our productivity and our GDP grows. I think the way to square the circle here, if you're asking, how could the stock market be expressing this much confidence if you don't agree with necessarily what Biden's policies were? I think you're not giving enough weight to the... I'm watching bars close. I'm watching restaurant owners going, what the heck's going on? I'm watching retail stores close down. They're not reopening. They're done. Brick and mortar is on its butt. Let's be nice, on its ass right now. How in the world is an economy going to support a $20 trillion economy going to support it with half the country wondering where their next paycheck if the government stops paying them? Well, we got to get out of it. I mean, 100%. We have to get out of that short-run catastrophe, really, which is what it has been. But I think that squares a circle. That's the reason why the market has shown enthusiasm for the Biden victory and Biden taking over. And that's why you see consumer confidence going up, is there's now going to be a national coherent strategy of stopping this virus. And that's the thing that sent us into recession. If we could get control of that, the economy can come roaring back.
No, let's hope so, Austin. Austan Goolsbee, always good to have you on. My concern is that there's a whole bunch of businesses that are about to declare bankruptcy, and boy, that's going to be rough on the American. Again, I'm pointing the finger at both Republicans and Democrats for spending our money wantonly without any sort of basis of keeping the economy floating. Austan Goolsbee, we'll bring you back. Appreciate your time.
Anytime.
All right, I'm bringing in now Dave Rubin. He's the host of the Rubin Show. Always good talking to Dave Rubin. Dave, a couple of things that are floating around. I heard Joe Biden today talk about unity. And again, we're taping this in the evening after Joe Biden was sworn in. Talked about unity. I assume he meant the left and the right, Trump people coming together to support the cause of the Biden administration. Meanwhile, I'm seeing something completely different going on. If you don't mind, control room, please roll the Katie Kurtz soundbite.
But I also think some of them are believing the garbage that they are being fed 24/7 on the internet by their constituents, and they bought into this big lie. And the question is, how are we going to really almost deprogram these people who have signed up for the cult of Trump?
Dave, deprogram people who are signed up for the cult. In other words, if you're on the left and the people on the right don't agree with you anymore, there's no unity. We have to deprogram you to think like us. What do you see?
Yeah, it's deeply dangerous what Katie Couric is saying there, because we could just flip the script, right? We could say, hey, everybody on the left that watches CNN and MSNBC needs to be deprogrammed. These people are brainwashed, and we should get their channels off the air, which is something that CNN just had a Facebook representative on to debate whether Fox News and some of these other networks should even be on the air, or whether YouTube should allow political talk shows like mine. So this game of, oh, if I disagree with it, it's automatically disinformation, or that disinformation or misinformation automatically should be censored, is really dangerous. You know, the First Amendment allows us to speak freely without coercion from the government. You're allowed actually to spread misinformation. It's our job, Eric, guys like us, to clean up that misinformation, to hopefully tell people the truth and analyze things as honestly as possible. But they're really making a move here to say, if you don't fall in line with our unity, our healing, then what we will do is call you an agent of misinformation and figure out a way to censor you.
You know, there's a Forbes business magazine editor, who last week came out and said, regarding anyone who was thinking about hiring Kellyanne Conway or Kayleigh McEnany or Sarah Huckabee Sanders or any other spokespeople for President Trump, if you're a company and you hire them, Forbes magazine will consider everything that your company says is a lie. I can't tell you how communist that feels to me, but even so, okay, so let's just say maybe people agree with them and those people can't be hired in business. Don Lemon the other night on CNN says this, take a listen.
If you voted for Trump, you voted for the person who the Klan supported. You voted for the person who Nazis support. You voted for the person who the alt-right supports. That's the crowd that you are in.
Okay, so here's the question. Okay, so now they've gone, this party that wants unity now says, well, if you work for Trump, you're unemployable. You can't work for anyone anymore. But not only that, if you voted for Trump, 74 million people, if you just voted for the guy for whatever reason, maybe you like his lower taxes, maybe you like the Supreme Court, maybe you don't like wars and he pulled us out of wars. If you just voted for the guy, you're a racist. I don't think they're looking for unity.
Yeah, Eric, does this remind you of that deplorables line from Hillary Clinton? Remember the basket of deplorables? In essence, what they're saying, again, if you disagree with us, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're deplorable, we're going to come for your job. Look, that's why they're always trying to take out every high-profile conservative. And that's why they're going so hard on Trump now and still want to push impeachment, because they want to make it so that everybody who is not woke, doesn't fall in line with progressive leftist orthodoxy, will be afraid to say what they think. I mean, I refuse to bow. I simply refuse not to say what I think, and I'm going to continue to do so. I know you will as well. But Don Lemon might be forgetting that it was his network that was instigating a lot of the violence. Chris Cuomo, the guy he was talking to in that very video you just showed, just a few weeks ago when Antifa and BLM were protesting was saying that where in the Constitution does it say that protest has to be peaceful? So it's like, have these guys promoted violence? And by the way, Richard Spencer, who is the sort of leader of the alt-right, I'm fairly certain he voted for Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. He publicly rebuked him. So at least get your apples and oranges right, Mr. Lemon.
Dave, only about a minute or so, and here's what I'm seeing, and I think the audience needs to hear this from me and also from you. I see Biden and the administration saying, here's an olive branch, let's reach across the aisle. The media, a far different story, and here's the problem. The media is so powerful in America right now. Media almost, the tail wags the dog in D.C. here. So these people eventually are going to succumb to what Don Lemons and Katie Couric and the other people we mentioned, some of the stuff that they're pushing. Biden and Harris are going to end up falling that way anyway, are they not?
Yeah, look, that's the question, right? Like, which way will Biden and Harris actually break? Will they go where the energy is, which is the far left stuff? Will they wholly embrace identity politics and critical race theory, ideas that are completely antithetical to our founding documents in that it does not treat you like an individual, it treats you like a group? I mean, that's the reverse of what it says in the Constitution. Will they do that, or will they possibly break more center? The irony is that I think Biden, in his heart of hearts, is probably a little more center, but can he control the entire system around him now? It doesn't look like it. I mean, just some of the stuff they're doing today and going back into the Paris Accords and a whole bunch of stuff, they're going to do a lot of big government stuff. And as you said in your opening intro, which was excellent, we got to keep them honest. As simple as that.
Yeah. Dave, I wrote a book called Wake Up America. I think I'm going to write my next, a sequel to it called Woke Up America, and only won't be as pretty as the first one. Dave Rubin, Dave Rubin Podcast. Always good to talk to you, Dave. Thank you.
Good to see you, Eric.
Okay, now we're going to bring in a friend of mine, Steve Cortes, who is on a senior advisor to the Trump 2020 campaign. Also, very proudly calls himself a Latino for Trump. I want to talk a little bit about the incoming administration, Joe Biden. He's talked about immigration reform. Meanwhile, we see a caravan of people coming from Honduras and Guatemala up towards Mexico. What are your thoughts on what would happen under President Biden at that U.S.-Mexico border if that caravan gets there?
Right. Eric, I have to say, frankly, it's terrifying. Joe Biden is putting forth these open borders proposals. They won't use that phrase, but that is de facto the reality of what they want for this country. And what I mean by that is they have promised, unfortunately, American citizenship, full American citizenship, to tens of millions of illegal migrants who trespassed into this country, who broke our laws, disrespected our nation, and then compete unfairly in the labor market against American citizens. They have also promised, though, to go even further than that and offer generous incentives to those who would cross our border illegally, such as taxpayer-funded health care and a cessation, a complete stoppage to all deportations for at least 100 days. So when you look at all this in its totality, combined with ending President Trump's very effective Remain in Mexico policy, they also want to stop that abuse, the former abuse of our asylum procedures in the United States. When you combine all of that in its totality, I think it invites a border crisis. It's no surprise that there's already at least one major caravan on the way. I think there would be more behind it. And again, porous borders are never a good idea for America, for our economic and national security, nor for our health in a time of pandemic. It's never a good idea, Eric, but particularly in a time of such economic uncertainty in this country. We are still in a growing but fragile recovery in this country. And now is the worst time imaginable to flood the United States with potentially millions and millions of new workers to compete unfairly in the labor market against American citizens, many of whom, by the way, happen to be minorities, trying to get their economic legs back under them.
Yeah, and I think that there are people who are floating the idea of a pathway to citizenship and also opening that southern border. I got to tell you, Steve, listen, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're from, you see a $27 trillion deficit, national debt, and that number's got to expand if you're bringing hundreds of thousands more people across the border and providing health care and education for these people. You can have a heart, but we simply can't afford it.
Right. Well, Eric, here's the thing, too. It's bad policy. It's also bad politics. And the reason I say that is as proof I would offer to the audience, look at how well President Trump did in the border counties, which are highly Hispanic working class counties. And this is true from the Gulf of Mexico all the way over to the Pacific Ocean in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. The president literally increased his voter share in 2020 in those counties substantially relative to 2016, massively so in some of them. I'll give you a couple quick examples. Starr County in Texas, it's the most Hispanic county in America, 96% Latino. The president didn't quite win Starr County, but he gained 55% versus his 2016 performance. He lost it by 60% then. He lost it by only 5% this time. Right next door is Zapata County, Texas, which is 86% Hispanic. The president did win Zapata County. He won it by 5 percentage points. That's a 38% improvement. So we saw, versus 2016, we saw seismic shifts in these blue-collar, heavily Hispanic border counties in the 2020 election. And what I think that tells us is that border security makes sense. The people who know it the best, the people who literally live on the border, rallied to the America First vision of border security, of border walls. And Hispanic Americans, by the way, contrary to what the liberal media wants us to believe, Hispanic Americans are not soft on border issues.
You know, and I think he did very well, correct me if I'm wrong, but President Trump increased his Hispanic support from 2016 to 2020.
Yes, quite substantially. As a matter of fact, if we look at the top, there are 100 counties in America that are majority Hispanic. And according to Politico, the president got 44% total of the vote, almost won the vote overall in those 100 Hispanic majority counties. That is 12% better than he did in 2016. It's one of the crucial reasons why Texas, which a lot of the Democrats tried to warn us was going to be a state that was in play, that it could actually tip blue. Texas, in fact, was not in play. And it's also one of the primary reasons that Florida was won relatively comfortably by the president. If you remember, the polling into Election Day showed us slightly down or perhaps tied in Florida. In fact, the president won the state of Florida by almost 400,000 votes, largely because of how well he did in Hispanics there. According to CNN exit polling, we split the vote 50-50, literally right down the middle of the Hispanic vote in the state of Florida. So there's a ton of momentum there. It's one of the reasons why, even though I'm very dismayed that Joe Biden is now president of the United States, I will tell you one of the main reasons that I'm excited about the future of the America First movement is that it's becoming such a broader movement. And that's true geographically, racially, ethnically. And proof positive of that is how well the president did among Hispanics. Again, whether it's on the border region in Texas or in South Florida among Cubans, this president proved that the America First combination of economic nationalism as well as sovereignty over our country is a winning proposition. And I hope that Senate Republicans remember that and that they show some backbone when Joe Biden tries to push through open borders legislation.
Very quickly, Steve, about half a minute or so. You talk to the president quite often. He alluded to the fact that this morning when he left Andrews Air Force Base, again, we're taping this on Wednesday, he left and said there's more to come from from Trump going forward. Do you have any idea what that might have been? He may have been talking about.
Yes, so I'm not at liberty to discuss his concrete plans, but I will tell you this. He's the indispensable leader of this movement, and the polling shows us that. Axios polling shows that 91% of Trump voters would vote for him again right now. Only 5% said that they would change their mind, and then a few percent are undecided. So he is the leader of this America First movement. He's going to remain incredibly influential, and I believe he's going to be most focused on trying to win the House back in 2022. He can be incredibly decisive in terms of fundraising, persuasion, communication, and campaigning for 2022.
I'll leave right there. Steve Cortes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron.
Marc Fisher is a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter and senior editor at Washington Post. Marc, thank you so much for joining us. So the question of the day, how will the media treat President Biden? And let's take a look back at how they treated President Trump. Remember, it was a bit of a hostile relationship. It seems a little different going forward. Is it? Will it be?
Well, it remains to be seen. What we're expecting, of course, is that President Biden will bring back the kind of relationship that existed pre-Trump, which was wary and distanced, but nonetheless, there was a commitment from previous administrations to provide accurate information on a timely basis. That vanished during the Trump administration and was brought back tonight by the new administration. This has nothing to do with party or ideology. Every administration prior to Trump provided a believable and truth-telling press operation that provided the American people with daily briefings, an opportunity for people to ask questions. The Trump administration did not do that. And so there was a kind of standoff between many reporters and news organizations and President Trump. So I think we're heading back to a more normal relationship, but that normal relationship is always a fractious one and should be a fractious one. And just as Barack Obama came to have strongly negative feelings toward his press corps, I think Biden inevitably will too, because our job is to be critical. It's our job to find what's been done wrong. The story of something going smoothly is mildly interesting, but much more important to the voters and to anyone in a democracy is to know what's gone wrong and why and how we can fix it.
So, Marc, I was in Fox before I came to Sinclair. President Trump gave us 7 interviews here, once at Fox. President Obama went on in 8 years, went on Fox when I was there, maybe once or twice. That's about it. Trump never went on CNN or MSNBC. If I'm CNN for sure. Will Joe Biden reach across and maybe come on this show, go on Fox? I'm guessing maybe not OAN or Newsmax, but will he be different?
I would imagine he probably will. I can't guarantee that he'll come on the show, but I certainly imagine that they will be prepared to reach across the aisle. They're eager to reach as many factions in the country as possible. And we saw that in the early days of really every administration except the Trump administration. And then sometimes things go smoothly, sometimes things go sour. But the important thing to realize is that we are a deeply divided country, deeply divided in where we get our news from, deeply divided in how we look at the world. And anything this administration understands, and Biden said in his inaugural address today, that the only way he succeeds is if he manages to break through that and unite people in some fashion. Well, you can only unite people by talking directly to them. Probably the biggest mistake Donald Trump made was he never reached out beyond his base. There were large portions of the electorate that were probably open to some of his messages, certainly some of his policies, and yet he never reached out to them. Joe Biden has made a career out of driving people toward the center. Now, people on both extremes are not going to like that. But the vast majority of the public in this country is moderate in tone, moderate in ideas, and they chose Joe Biden for that reason. They're looking for stability, they're looking for security, and they're looking for someone who is interested in finding consensus, which had been kind of out of style in recent weeks.
I don't mean to cut you off. I only have about a minute, so be very concise if you don't mind. Twitter pulled a story that New York Post exposed of Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. They pulled the Twitter account of the New York Post. Was that a mistake in hindsight? And do you think going forward, Biden will be held at the same level of scrutiny that President Trump was by the New York Times or your publication, the Washington Post?
I certainly think we will have every bit as much scrutiny on Joe Biden as we did on Donald Trump or any of his predecessors. You have to remember, ours is the news organization that broke the story of the Clinton emails and of the Clinton Foundation spending. So we're as aggressive with Democratic administrations as we are with Republican. That's our job. That's why we want to be reporters. We want to find out what's gone wrong and why. But as far as Twitter goes, look, the social media companies are out of control. Social media companies have been given permission by successive governments to operate without any responsibility for their content. It's time that they be reined in. Obviously, that's what the American people want. And we'll see if either party has the courage to do that against these enormously powerful and wealthy corporations.
All right. Marc Fisher, always great having the Washington Post on. Really a pleasure hosting you as well. Marc Fisher, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next on America This Week, Sinclair political commentator Amisha Cross and the vice chair of the American Conservative Union, Charlie Giroux, discuss President Biden's inauguration and moving forward.
America's news. New and now from across the nation. I'm Jan Jeffcoat, introducing the National Desk News. It's live, it's immediate, it's impactful, investigative news.
They were counting on no one finding out what they were doing.
I'm Kel Thompson. Breaking news coverage across our striking and unique cities. small towns.
Seeing it floating on top of the water like that, I mean, that's just such a cool feeling.
Wide open plains.
If we don't think about our rural communities, they will be gone.
Our mountains and coasts.
We're having to go to a foreign country to get insulin.
Based in Washington, D.C., the National Desk provides America's news weekday mornings. Nearly 4,000 National Desk journalists covering America.
Live across America with breaking news at the Live Desk.
The wind is going faster than we are.
The National Desk team provides balance.
There's no question whatsoever. You're more susceptible to this damage from the COVID-19.
A balance of local, regional, national, and international news.
Wake up to America's News Now each weekday from the National Desk.
The National Desk brings the American story home to you.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge.
Welcome back to a very cold and very live America this week. I'd like to bring in our panel. Sinclair political commentator Amisha Cross resides on the left, and on the right we have Charlie Giroux. He's the vice chair of the American Conservative Union. Welcome, both of you. I'll start with you, Amisha. Congratulations to the victory lap. Your guy is now the 46th president of the United States. How did the inauguration go?
I thought the inauguration was pitch perfect. I know that there were a lot of people who were a little bit flustered about it being almost entirely virtual, but I think that the speeches themselves, the diversity that was on display, the conversations that were held there, the way that we saw an America that was looking towards progress and moving forward, one that totally clamped down white supremacy. We saw the ideals of what America stands for on that stage. And I think that from the youth laureate speaker, the youth Nobel laureate speaker, to the music that we heard, to even seeing Garth Brooks, a personal favorite of mine. I think that what we saw today was in America that is visionary, one that understands that we've come through some dark times, but one that understands that the hope of America is believing in change and fighting for that change. And I think that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris represent that fully.
All right, Charlie, what about, so the ACU, American Conservative Union, puts on CPAC every year. What's the CPAC going to look like next year under the first year of President Joe Biden?
I think it's going to be very watchful, Eric, because the rhetoric that we heard today was exactly what you expected. Calls for unity, and the tone was right. But what we really are going to have to see now is whether the words match the action, and whether what they're really calling for is unity or what they want is conformity. And in the first hours of the Biden presidency, he was down signing executive orders. Incidentally, Barack Obama signed 0 his first day. George Bush didn't sign any. Donald Trump signed 1. And today, President Biden, more than a dozen, doing some things that turn the clock significantly backwards and tilt the country dramatically to the left. And so now the legislative agenda comes, and massive tax increases, et cetera. So there are going to be some sharp philosophical battles ahead, and I think that will be what you'll hear at CPAC this year.
Okay, Misha, what about that? What about the left, or the right saying that the left is about to become more progressive? Bernie Sanders waiting quietly in the wings, AOC. Will they pull, as they promised, they warned us and they promised, will they pull Biden and Harris further to the progressive left?
I think that Joe Biden is a moderate, and I don't think that that's going to change, as is Kamala Harris. But I do think that they have a mandate. They have a mandate that came from those who voted for them. They have a mandate that comes from a country that wants to see not only more unity, but a relaxation of the divisiveness. They want us to go into the world and be that lamp for the rest of the world that showcases not that we are in our own silos and solitude, but that we can be collaborative partners. And I think that if we look back to the things that Joe Biden did today, we have to understand that no other president has had the ill-fated luxury of following Donald Trump, a president who is known for putting children in cages, a president who's known for child separation policies. This is a president under Joe Biden who is going to make sure,
That's a very unifying comment, Amisha. I only have about a minute and a half. Can I get Charlie in here? Charlie, well, I'm hearing two different things. I'm getting two different signals. I'm getting a really unifying message from Biden. Let's be honest. It was a good speech. Everyone liked the speech. But then
it was
a
good
left
speech,
media
but again,
who is just absolutely trashing anything that Trump or Trump supporters are about. Which one is it going to be? Somewhere in the middle? Maybe we can hope for that.
I pray that it's somewhere in the middle. But again, you just heard, and I'm the second Latino for Trump on the program tonight, that it was President Trump that put Latinos in cages. It was the Biden administration that started that. But let's be very clear. The opportunity is here for some rapprochement, but when you call Kamala Harris a centrist, it really tells you how far to the left the Democrat Party has gotten, because Kamala Harris was judged by an independent rating system to be the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. That takes some doing. So we're hoping that there will be some opportunities to work together, but it looks like there's going to be some significant battles on the horizon.
All right, Amisha, to the winner go the spoils. You won. I got 30 seconds for your final thought.
The American public has spoke loudly and proudly. We also saw the inception of two new Democratic senators from Georgia, a state that many people thought could never turn blue. This country is going in the direction that it should be going right now. And I think that the inauguration of both Kamala and Joe Biden showcases, again, where the path forward happens to lead.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Listen, always great having you both on. Again, we take it from the left and from the right. We try and straight shoot right down the middle, everyone. Amisha Cross, Charlie Giroux, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ahead on America This Week, Democratic strategist Marc Goodwin and I discuss Joe Biden's immigration strategy going forward. A new year, a new president, and for me, a new podcast. My friend, Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre and I are launching a cool new podcast starting next month. We talk about everything from football to politics to business to culture. Who's the best quarterback in the playoffs? Brady, Breeze, Mahomes, Rodgers. To what will a post-President Trump America look like? We talk it all out. It's going to be uncensored and off the hook. I guarantee that. Bolling with Favre launches February 2nd on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. We hope you listen and check us out.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, American strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one
from the bottom of my heart. This has been an incredible 4 years. I wish the new administration great luck and great success. I think they'll have great success. They have the foundation to do something really spectacular.
Earlier today, I spoke with Democratic strategist Marc Goodwin. Here's what he had to say about Biden going forward.
It provided a unifying vision for America going forward. I'm excited because we're going to start to put into action a plan on COVID. We're going to focus on immigration reform, creating real pathways to citizenship. We're going to bring America back into the Paris Climate Accord agreement. We're going to do away with some of the damaging executive orders that have hurt the environment. We're going to provide immediate assistance to people around the country and address the minority communities that were often the first hit by this economic turmoil and the health disparities that are happening across the country. So I think it's really setting the tone for an American comeback story.
I will give you this. That was a very unifying speech. It was a great, well written and well delivered speech. I give you that. Hey, Marcus, you mentioned about the first 100 days, and you mentioned the immigration policy. You know, we're watching a caravan of people coming from Guatemala being stopped at the border at Mexico. If they end up getting through, what should Joe Biden do if a big, massive caravan of illegals coming across the border? What's Joe Biden going to do with that?
I think he should do what American presidents have done in the past, and that's create a real pathway to citizenship. We need to put a halt on deportations and ensure that going forward, there's a real means by which people can pursue and attain the American dream. That hasn't been the case before with past administrations, Democrat or Republican, but now the stage is set and we have an opportunity to treat people humanely and provide them access to this American dream we're also privileged and fortunate to have.
I got you. So anyone who's here, you know, there's the dreamers and whatnot. They're here. There's a path to citizenship under a Biden immigration plan. But I'm talking about what happens if 50 or 100,000 or 200,000 people start coming across our border. Should we open the door and let them come in?
I think as long as we're setting forth clear rules and regulations by which people can become citizens, we're not going to put them into a precarious position. But it also means that we need to focus across the border on Mexico and ensure that there is a decent and, in fact, good quality of life for people who want to be able to build themselves up economically and not have to come to America, but instead choose to come to America if they can provide value, as many immigrants do. So I think we should focus on the positive that they can bring and support our neighbors across the border.
Okay, and again, I'm still asking about what happens if we get flooded from our southern border, because that's a lot of resources. You have to, you know, if you're just going to let them in, you have to provide health care. You have to provide schooling sometimes for a long period of time. And by the way, Marcus, $27 trillion in debt. We're broke. We don't really have the funds to do that. Let's move on, though. It's not an immigration talk today. Trump's legacy, your thought about a minute or so.
I think in spite of the few things that he did well, he continued Obama's strong economy in America. Operation Warp Speed was no doubt a resounding success. I think he was truly sincere about the criminal justice reforms that he's invested in. However, overall, he was pretty awful at serving the American people. He presided over a horrible immigration regime. He put into place the Muslim ban. He encouraged insurrectionists and traitors to the United States to attack the halls of Congress and members therein. And he consistently spewed xenophobic and racist remarks while focusing on personal enrichment with his hotel in D.C. So overall, this is a shameful legacy. And this is going to be the start of an American comeback story focused on our decency, our shared values, and unifying people across the aisle, as Joe Biden clearly laid out in his speech.
Interesting you say that. And I'm going to do this throughout the show, talk to people on the left about that. I hear people on the left, I hear news reporters on the left saying anyone who is working for Trump should be unemployable. Anyone who was pro-Trump. Don Lemon said, if you voted for Trump, you're a racist. I got 20 seconds, Marcus. Do you agree with that mentality?
I think it depends on what people did and the role they played in the administration. Again, there were a few highlights. I think the strong economy that presided through the first 3+ years of the presidency, Operation Warp Speed. I mean, kudos and hats off to everyone who was a part of that. I think the criminal justice reform work has been brilliant, but people who are in other parts of the administration, certainly in immigration and homeland security and defending the American people here locally, they did not do a great job. So I think people should be judged on the merits of what occurred in their specific part of the American government. I wouldn't just paint a broad brush over people just because they were part of his admin.
There we go. I'm going to leave it right there, Marc. Goodwin, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Up next, a very special inauguration, Balls and Strikes, featuring Vanity Fair's Ecarma and Katelyn Caralle with the Daily Mail. Stay with us.
America's news. New and now. From across the nation, I'm Jan Jeffcoat, introducing the National Desk News. It's live, it's immediate, it's impactful, investigative news.
They were counting on no one finding out what they were doing.
I'm Kel Thompson. Breaking news coverage across our striking and unique cities. Small towns.
Seeing it floating on top of the water like that, I mean, that's just such a cool feeling.
Wide open plains.
If we don't think about our rural communities, they will be gone.
Our mountains and coasts.
We're having to go to a foreign country to get insulin.
Based in Washington, D.C., the National Desk provides America's news weekday mornings. Nearly 4,000 National Desk journalists covering America.
Live across America with breaking news at the live desk.
The wind is going faster than we are.
Impactful.
Workers are not expendable.
The National Desk team provides balance.
There's no question whatsoever. You're more susceptible to this damage from the COVID-19.
A balance of local, regional, national, and international news.
Wake up to America's News Now, each weekday from the National Desk.
The National Desk brings the American story home to you.
Balls and Strikes is a segment that is straight news, no opinion. We try and do it. Call it like we see them, folks. If it's in the strike zone, it's a strike. Outside, it's a ball. No opinion. So I'd like to bring in right now a couple of my friends, Vanity Fair staff reporter Ecarma, and also Katelyn Caralle, the U.S. political reporter with the Daily Mail. These are two great publications, very critical of the Trump administration, let's be honest. Hey, guys, very quickly, do you think the media, very quickly, will hold President Biden as accountable as they held President Trump? Caleb, let's start with you.
I think when Biden comes into, the fold and he's sort of building his cabinet up more and pushing for his policies, I think we're going to see a lot of the media criticism that was leveled against Trump sort of ease up. And I think, there is going to be we've already seen it with Joy Reid, the MSNBC host, who was attacking, reporters for reporting out leaks from the Biden world camp. And she has spent the past 4 years essentially, jumping on every scoop that was leaked out of the Trump administration. So I think we're going to see a lot of that where there's going to be, cable news hosts circling the wagons and preparing to sort of defend or, push apologia on behalf of Biden. And I think the standard should be the standard, if the standard of objective journalism is to.
Caitlin, let me ask you, Daily Mail, it's one of my first reads in the morning as well. You guys are all over politics, all over D.C., all over the White House. Well, you think it'll be as harsh with Biden as it was with Trump?
Well, at risk of sounding too much like an opinion, I will say I think that there is going to be an easing up. We've already seen some examples of that today. They're talking about what Biden was wearing at his inauguration. There wasn't a lot of coverage that with the Trump administration. And I think that we also saw when he was in the Oval Office that I don't think we're really going to get as much of a chance to hound on Biden as much because his wranglers and his press team are not giving press as much access so far. So we'll see how that pans out as the administration moves on.
Wait, I got something. Okay. So we're back, and let me just explain. This is live TV, and everyone freaks out when something like this happens, but this is what happens in live TV, and I'm pretty sure has nothing to do with the new president being sworn in today. Let's get back with Caleb and Katelyn. Caleb, let's just have a little fun here. We have a couple minutes left. Let's have a little fun. Bernie Sanders mittens were trending all day today. Take a look. We have them. Got to get me some of those mittens. I could use them right now. It's 34 degrees out here. I'm freezing. Caleb.
Yeah, those mittens, there's actually a really cool story behind them. They were made out of totally sustainable products. I believe it was plastic and some other recycled goods. And so there's a woman who sells them, and basically as, Bernie himself is known for his sustainability with clothing. I think he only owns one coat, as far as I know, because he's always seen in the same, sort of beige coat from like all of the different rallies going back to the 16 campaign. So, it was very fitting for Bernie.
So Katelyn, what do you think? What's the Daily Mail take on the mittens wardrobe?
Well, Daily Mail is all about the fashion. We love the mittens. I'm glad to hear Caleb's story about the sustainability behind it because I had no idea there was even a story behind it. I thought Bernie just loved his mittens. We're talking about today at Daily Mail how we did think that Bernie only owned one jacket. We said, I don't think he owns an overcoat. And we for sure are on board with the fact that he stays true to himself, never wears an overcoat, never wears a dress coat, and just is truly a true Vermontan, if that is the name for it.
About a minute or so, Caleb. We're going from a very, very big personality in Donald Trump and the Trump family and Melania Trump to a very seemingly low-key guy in the Bidens. All the ratings seem that the eyeballs are going to go away, are they not? What are you going to do to keep eyeballs?
I think the main thing is just to kind of keep pushing, keep up that same energy. There was a big resurgence of investigative journalism under Trump. Lots of reporters sort of made their names in the past 4 years breaking huge stories about the administration. And I think with Biden coming in, it's not like there's not going to be scandals. I'm sure there will be, many scandals, as there always is. And I think that the press, we have a responsibility to keep that same energy between every administration and ensure that, even if stories aren't as popular in sort of a sensational way. I mean, with Trump, it's hard to top, like you said, huge personality. I mean, I think when his Twitter account got deleted, that was like, not since the burning of the Library of Alexandria have we had so much culture lost in one moment. And so I think it's going to be hard to keep that same interest in the viewer and readership, but, we are not beholden to popularity. And I think we just have to keep that same energy that we had with under Trump and keep digging and keep investigating and just keep up the work.
Yeah, what about it, Katelyn? There's not going to be 40 or 50 tweets to write about during any given day, or what Melania wore on one of her trips to the border.
Right. I mean, the weirdest thing for me has been that I don't get an alert every few seconds with a new Donald Trump tweet. And I think we're going to definitely see 4 more years of that, although Joe Biden does have a Twitter account at POTUS. He definitely won't be tweeting and interacting with the public as much and keeping us up to date in real time on what he's doing. So like Caleb said, we in the media do have a responsibility to keep digging, keep that enthusiasm up, and make sure that we are covering this just as diligently as we were covering the Trump White House, even if it seems that media access might be more restrictive, or we don't get that immediate tweet from the president every morning when we wake up to set the news for the day.
All right, Caleb, about 30 seconds. Last to you. Last word of the show.
Yeah, I think that, I totally agree with Katelyn. I mean, we're going to have to keep up the work, and, it's going to be a long 4 years. This is the past 4 years were. But I think there's going to be a lot of journalists who are going to be able to, make their bread and butter and make their names under the Biden administration, just as, Maggie Haberman and others did in the past 4 years. So, there's always going to be work to be done, and no one can let off the gas, especially not now.
All right, great. That's Katelyn Ecarma, the Vanity Fair staff writer, and Katelyn Caralle, U.S. political reporter for the Daily Mail. I want to say thank you to you both. A couple of very, very good reporters, young people who are on their way up, rising stars, as they say. Thank you both very much for your time. Before we go, I just wanted to take a minute to remind the folks that, yes, we've had President Trump for 4 years. We're about to embark on a new venture with President Biden and Vice President Harris. Again, my mission will be the same, to bring what's going on here in D.C. into your living room every Sunday night, Saturday night, whenever we air in your area. I'll continue to do that, hold truth to power, as always. Again, straight down the middle, folks. From a very, very cold 34 degrees, live D.C. Thank you for joining us. See you again next week. How long does this have to be? A certain length? Okay. Mm. never miss an episode of America This Week. Just set your DVR, go to facebook.com/America Bowling for a list of times and places we air. Also, you can go to YouTube and subscribe there so you never miss an episode or an important interview. America This Week.